Hello and welcome back to another Island 54 development stream where I am working on my survival crafting MMO. It's been a few days since I did my last stream, so it's going to take me a moment to work out where I was at. I've unfortunately been busy with other commitments that, they unfortunately do have to take priority. So let's see where I was at. So I was testing the Invalidation manager. I remember I was also doing tests of the delta applicator, so the apply delta function. So I've got a feeling my best bet right at the moment, just to see where I'm at, is to just spin everything up and see where things are at. Oh, no, I've got a failing test. So let's work on fixing this test. So we're over on the server side. So I remember now. I had tested all of the client-side stuff, and I think I had pretty good test coverage. I've previously done a pretty good job, I think, of testing the generate delta function. And so, yeah, I've just been working on improving these tests. The test I'm working on at the moment, let's just see what it was I was actually doing. So I've added a test for able to delete an entity, making sure that deletion is idempotent. So if you delete something twice, that it succeeds, but the second one just doesn't actually do anything because it's already been done. And now we have this add component is failing. What else have I got down here? I've also got add attribute, which is passing. So add attribute obviously takes, what does it do? It constructs an entity. It applies a delta that is going to add an attribute, and it's worth noting this only sets a single attribute. Okay, I need to put a to-do in here. Hold on, because I'm not sure this is correct. How would I go about deleting an attribute? So I'm just going to put a to-do here. I'll also just make sure that we are in fact live on both Twitch. Just get into my stream manager. Yes, we are live on Twitch. And yes, YouTube appears to be live as well. Excellent. Okay. All right. I've got two people in at the moment. Oh, no, one of them was me. Okay. So yeah, add attribute. The problem here is this construct entity creates an entity with a single component and a single attribute on that component, which has, it's basically, instead of hello world, it's just key and value. Now I'm passing through an update here, attempting to add this attribute here, but this wouldn't allow me to delete an attribute. I could set this to undefined. Regardless, I need to think about this and make sure that it is consistent with generate delta. But this up here is the test that's failing, which is add component. So we construct an entity with a single component. I then apply a delta. It's an update. This is correct because update is interpreted as we know what the ID is for the new component. We create a new random ID. So I expect this to just create a new component called new component. It has hello world. And then, yes, I do indeed expect there now to be 2 components on this entity. Putting a breakpoint in here, then hitting debug. Get rid of some of these breakpoints. So result is what came out of applying this new delta. Let's just double check the delta does have the entity ID. It is an update, and this should be applying an update to one of the components, well, to a new component. So result has a single entity ID in it, and sure enough, that only has a single component ID, and that is the original component. So apply delta is not correctly interpreting this block here as adding a new component. So this should be fairly straightforward to fix. I'd say this is just a missing condition in apply delta. So let's go have a look. We go and we do update the transform. I still need to work out that I've got the optionality right. We update anything else, and then we go and look at the components. On these, if we delete a component, then it uses this destructuring just here to pull out the matching component ID. So that I'm pretty sure will work. Otherwise, we treat it as an update, in which case we return the other components other than this one. And then we take the attributes and we try to collapse them into either the matching component, which we don't have in this case because I'm trying to create a new one. So it should be coming in here. And this looks correct. So I'm going to need to put a breakpoint in here, run this test again, and let's just watch what it does as we come in through here. So yep, we do have an entity. Where's our entity? I don't see entity in here. Why not? I'd say it's just gone out of scope for some reason. It might be some sort of a weird optimization. All right, so let's just look at the update then. Oh, we don't have that either. What's going on here? Component update. Okay, so components should be the existing list of components, and it's not. That's a bit of a worry. So this is definitely wrong. So what I actually expect it to do is I expect it to take the existing components on that, on here. Okay, need another breakpoint. Let's just run this test again. Sorry if I'm not doing a great job of explaining my thinking here. Hopefully once I've got a better idea of what's going on, I'll be able to talk things through a bit better. So I've got an entity. Huh. I'm going to have to come all the way up to the top here because this entity does not look correct. It's missing a lot of information. Okay, let's just breakpoint all the way in at the top. Entities is what we expect it to be. We have what looks like a valid entity ID. Slightly surprised these aren't UUIDs, but I'm going to ignore that for now. That may well be my issue, actually. But then here's an entity. It has a single component. This is just the built-in component. Fine. It ends in F3. That's just worth noting. Yes, now this is probably just a mistake in my test. Because ID is getting formatted. The ID we're searching for here, let's just step through here. Yes, so we try grabbing the actual entity ID here. I mean, I don't know why I'm doing that as a spread operator. But this is obviously not going to find anything because our entities object is using a shorter form ID. So I think this is a problem in my test. Let's just go back to that other code. Where do I call that? Here we go. E1. So construct entity. Yes, that should not be a toString. This should be a UUID from Mongo because we're generating a Mongo object ID up here. To UUID string. Excellent. Same thing here. I think I seem to remember already making this change. I wonder if I've accidentally rolled it back at some point. Or I've made this change in one of the other tests, perhaps. To UUID string. I've already got the change correctly down in here. Yeah, I did factor this code out. It was separately in apply delta and generate delta. I'd say that I've accidentally rolled back that change. Okay, let's try this again. We step through. Now, entity should be valid at this point. If I can find it. Yep, here it is. Entity. Yep, we have a valid entity. It should have a single component. Excellent. We then come down. We update. Well, we work out we don't need to update the component, the coordinate, sorry, because we're only adding a component to this entity. Is static. Yes, that has to be specified each time. We don't have the concept of null on that. That is all fine. Process the components. So at this point, we should step in here. And I expect match to get set to undefined and other to be the single, an array containing that single entity, that single component. So let's see, match is undefined and other is a single component. That's excellent. And the reason for that is we don't have a matching component yet because we are creating a new one. So the list of components is now going to be the other components plus a new component. Let's come in here. Component has an ID, it has a type, it has no attributes yet, but this will apply this attribute to it, which is hello world. Excellent. We return out of here. And this looks like the test is going to pass. Okay, that is easy enough to fix. This is just a UUID format problem. I might actually need to get rid of the toString method on this UUID type. 2-hex string, I think I called it. 2-hex string. Yeah, I might need to get rid of this because this feels like it's asking for a bug to have two different ways of converting this to a string. I would rather use the verbose, UUID style format because it's easier to read. So I will likely get rid of this. I'll wait until I've got my tests passing. All right. This apparently only gets called in 2 places. One of them is internal, so I can get rid of that like so. And the other one is in a test. I've got a feeling that will have broken my test for generate delta. Let's just run the tests, run everything in there. Maybe it'll all just cancel out and I've just fixed a test. Yeah, I've just fixed something, I'd say. So this would have broken just then. All right, so now I can get rid of this function. We don't have the toString anymore. The 2-hex string. We have a toString. No. Excellent. So it'll be much harder for me to make those same problems with the 2 different formats of UUID now. Apply delta, run those tests. Now, from a testing philosophy point of view, I really like to have these independent tests. So we're testing generate delta, and we test that only calling the generate delta method. I've separately got apply delta, which we test only by calling the apply delta method. The problem we have here is if all these tests pass, then we know the code is correct with the assumption that apply delta and generate delta are built with the same logic. So we assume things like Where's an example? We assume that this is the correct delta for adding an attribute rather than replacing one attribute with another. So what I would normally do in here, I'm not going to do it right now because I don't think I need the tests yet. But what I'd normally do is I'd actually have another test in here that is an integration test basically between generate delta and apply delta. And what that would do is it would be similar to generate delta. It would go and do things like, all right, here are two entities. In the second entity, add a component. And then what it would do is it would generate a delta and make sure that the delta is what we expect. And then it would apply that delta to the original entity and make sure that we get something identical to the second entity. Now, the benefit of that is we make sure that these two methods, apply delta and generate delta, are indeed using consistent logic. Because at the moment, I have no idea if that's true. Now, I can just double check in here that the logic does make sense. Remove component, where's add attribute to existing component? Okay, they are using different logic. So we expect if any attribute changes, we expect generate delta to send through all of the attributes. And this allows us to delete an attribute by just removing one of these. Excuse me. So I will fix that. I won't write the tests to make sure it's consistent, but this here should in fact do that. So we do need to write out each attribute and then inside apply delta itself. Was that working before? This is calling update on an existing component, and it was previously just passing through a single attribute. Yes, I see. If we have a match, then I need to actually delete the match attributes so that we can write them out all from scratch. Now, I think this won't affect my tests because I'm not specifically testing this case and I've correctly inserted this. So let's just rerun these tests. They should still be all green. Correct. And just to demonstrate it, back to how it was before, so we didn't have this code before. This will fail. Yes. Okay. So I am going to spin this up. What's the most likely place I'm going to want to debug? Well, I need to make sure that all the acknowledgements are being done properly, so I'm just going to quickly double check my code. See, I think it's in the UDP transmitter that I actually apply all the deltas and things. Let's just double check. So in here, we tell the entity server about the any changes to the player's transform, and then we report the sighting out to the session client. Now, all this does is grab the ID that was last acknowledged by the client, the ID of the last client message we've seen, and any invalidation acknowledgements that have come through and not yet been processed by the server. So I believe that then just gets stored in the session store. And it does. We just take this and we literally just write it out to the session store. Then what happens? Presumably, the UDP transmitter will then come through. Yes, and this I don't think I've called into the new apply delta code. Let me just put a bookmark here so I can come back to that easily. If we look at apply delta, who calls apply delta? It's probably only the tests. It gets called by the tests, and it also gets called by apply message ACK, which gets called by process acknowledgements. Oh yeah, here we go. So the logic in here is we try constructing a server message. So what this is going to do is it's going to look at the client state, what it believes the client state to be. It's going to look at the entity service for what we want the client to be able to see. It's going to generate a diff, which it does just here. So I think this all looks okay because assuming process acknowledgements works, this is going to process any acknowledgements that have come in from the client. This is going to go through, it's going to apply any message acts, so that will have any kind of little dynamic changes that have been sent over UDP. It's then going to apply chunk invalidation acknowledgements. So that's going to be those big bulk ones. And then it's going to clean up after itself. All right. So I think this code looks about right. I'm going to debug the UDP transmitter just because this is where all of the work happens. This doesn't look too happy. Something is not right. I'll try running it as Docker, just see if we get anything useful in the logs. Something wrong with the UDP receiver. It looks fine. All right, try spinning this up in a command line. This is a compiler error. In the sessions controller. Okay, let's kill this. I'm surprised IntelliJ didn't pick this up. So sessions controller. There we go. Just opening this file, it's been able to pick it up. I'm not sure how you tell IntelliJ to go off and reparse all of its files. That would be a handy thing for me to be able to do. But its problem here is going to be I've added some parameters or something. So it's saying I've got a parameter of type. It's an object with session ID, player ID, time registered. It's missing invalidation X. Yes, and sure enough, I've made this non-optional, which makes sense. I mean, it's an array, so it should be populating this with an empty array. So that's easy enough to fix. Welcome, random guy. As soon as I'll get the devlog episode out as soon as I can. I'm a bit delayed with it. I've had a few other things come up that have just had to take precedence, unfortunately. So I don't have an ETA on it, but hopefully soon. All right, session controller in here. I just need to add invalidation X, just be an empty list. I think that's okay. I should have run this in the debugger. It's fine. Good on you, random guy. It sounds like you've made good progress there. Okay, so where are things at? We've got, this is still not running. All right, have to run it from here again, see what dies. Something has died here, and it is the entity service. Oh, UUID. Oh. Oh, yes, I see. So this is just a problem with Yarn and TypeScript. I added a library to my netcode module, but I didn't add the types for TypeScript. So I just need to do a yarn, add that. Oh, this looks like just a dependency issue. So I think I'll just try running this. Nope, entity is unhealthy. I'm going to bring the whole thing down, wipe out the databases. So it'll have to generate terrain and stuff again when I connect a client. There we go. That is running. Okay. Bring in a client. Cross my fingers. And I have no entities. Oh, there's an entity. Yeah, I will add fishing of some sort in the MMO for sure. I've thought a bit about how, if you were to be kind of, wake up one morning, this is the thought process I like to go through for the early game. If you were to wake up one morning just on some, you go to sleep tonight, wake up in the morning, and you have absolutely nothing to your name. How would you survive? It does seem that one of the most likely ways you'd get food if there was a good source of fish around would be to spearfish. Hook and line fishing, maybe a bit later, but to begin with, if you watch Survivor and stuff, then yeah, they go and make themselves a spear and catch a few fish like that. So there's a bit weird that. Okay, the flicker, I know exactly what's causing the flicker. It is literally just trees lying down and coming back up again. So that's an issue in the way that in the way that I populate trees. So this tree is just getting re-added, re-added, re-added. But why are there so few trees? Why am I not signed into Unity? That's a bit weird, but anyway. Yes, there will be islands. I have a feeling that there needs to be some way of doing a tutorial, and I don't know if that'll happen on an island and then you somehow find your way across to the mainland, or if I'll do it in kind of another dimension. There's a benefit to doing the tutorial in some other dimension detached from the rest of the world, and that is I can control time, so new players won't necessarily be coming into the game in the middle of the night that way. But yeah, there'll be islands with unique resources on them. So people will need to band together to go and build up little civilizations on separate islands, and probably have to defend those islands against other players. But yeah, boats, I intend to add boats, islands, all of that kind of thing. So this is interesting. As I get closer to a tree, it stops flickering. I'm going to have to look at what's coming out of the server, I think. Because it is receiving lots of entities from the server. Like each time I move to a new chunk, let's go and move to, you can see these log messages. If we go and load some new chunks, so it's loaded some meshes, and yeah, it's gone and received a bunch of entities. So unless the server is, there's only two options here. Either the client isn't rendering these entities, or it's rendering them and then immediately deleting them because the server is telling it to. Uh, yes, I'm ignoring the flicker for now because that's unrelated. Think about the best way of doing this. Okay. Let's just look at what is coming into the client at the moment. Invalidation manager, process message from server. This will let me see what's coming in. Now, in theory, before I actually look at what's in there, I'll say what I'm expecting to see. So the server will have sent through some chunk invalidations. It might have sent through some deltas as well. The client will have fetched those chunk invalidations and then sent acknowledgements back to the server. So the server should stop sending chunk invalidations and not send any deltas either because nothing is changing. So let's see what's actually in the message. The message contains an ACK, that's fine. It contains chunk invalidations. That is not good. So the next question is, on a subsequent packet, does the acknowledgement change? So is the server successfully seeing acknowledgements? Oh, sorry, client messages. So this one ends in 229. Run it through a few more times. Oh, did something crash? Something looks like it's crashed. Yes. Oh, I think I just timed out a session. I'll restart the client just because otherwise it'll take a minute for it to find out that the server's not talking to it. Let's just try that again. We come in here, we've got an ACK ending in 255, an ACK ending in 238, ACK ending in 144, 625. Okay, so it is definitely getting lots of messages, but it is still invalidating those messages. So the next question is this. Is the client successfully sending through chunk invalidation acknowledgements? Process message from here. I'm not sure that it necessarily is. So I don't think, what's this doing? I don't think we're sending back the chunk invalidations. Yeah, and where would that actually be happening? I think I've just forgotten to write some code. So process message from client is meant to be going off and looking at which chunk invalidations have been fully processed, which is here. Oh, here we go. It's this code. So it goes through, and if it can find any invalidation handlers that are in the fetched state, that is, that they're completed, then we need to tell the server about them. So does this code ever get hit? And it looks like this code's never being hit. So this is going to be something really silly. If I just come through here, yeah, okay. Pretty funny because I've wrote a whole bunch of tests for this stuff, so I'm a bit surprised that it's not working. All right. Let's take a look at a chunk invalidation handler. We're going to come in here. I'm going to run around until we get a new chunk invalidation. So I'll just run straight ahead. We'll hit a breakpoint. There it goes. Then what this is going to do is it's going to set the state to fetching. Then off in the background, it's going to run a task. Should set the state to fetched. Going to see where this goes. So it's worth noting that in here, this method returns a list of tasks, but we don't wait on that or anything like that. That should be fine. Those tasks should just continue to run in the background. Okay. So back in here, we have where do we hit the breakpoint? Here we are. So I'm just going to step through this code. I'm going to put a breakpoint in there. Disable that breakpoint so that we don't keep on hitting it as each of these comes through. We're going to run this code. We do that. We grab the entities out. We've seen the entities. Awesome. Oh, we've got an exception. Ah, this is a problem. I have no way of handling errors. Now, I don't know what the error is in here is caused by. In a lot of ways, I don't really care. But what I definitely need in here, now we don't need the complete state anymore, but I will put an error state in here. I need to be able to detect when they go into the error state. let's just stop this. Oh, I didn't mean to stop. Oh, I think I just killed Unity. That's all right. I'll spin it up again. So I know that this didn't throw the error. It must have been this that threw the error. What's that doing? One bad joke, random guy. I heard a good one over the weekend, but I can never remember them. So I think I can just put a try catch around this. How do you catch everything? Can I do that? Looks like we've had someone else join on YouTube, so welcome whoever that is. So the issue I had was it was presumably successfully performing this query. It was logging that it was receiving a bunch of entities. We know that was working. It's crashing somewhere in here. And therefore it was never setting the state to fetched. So now I've instead got it so that if anything goes wrong during the fetch or the handler for the new data coming in, it's now going to set the state to error. So I can detect that elsewhere. I'm going to throw this try around the whole thing. Oops, what's this doing? There we go. Why would I want a job of cleaning mirrors? Cleaning mirrors. I'm not sure why random go. I started out being able to get some of these, and I can't get any of your jokes anymore. I can't see myself doing it. Oh, that's terrible. It'd almost work better if you said cleaning dirty mirrors, because if they're dirty, then you can't see yourself. I guess that's kind of reading. You can read between the lines and get that anyway, I suppose. Okay, so this now lets us detect an error. So the invalidation manager, which currently, what does it do? It currently looks for ones that are in the fetched state. No, definitely not random guy. It is just me. I wish I could have a team working on the videos. It takes a surprising amount of time to do the devlogs. They yeah, there's a lot of steps to making a video that's not just kind of me rambling like these streams are. I've got to write the script, record it, cut all the footage up, well, capture the footage, cut it all up, stick it all together, and make sure it makes sense. So yeah, it is just me, random guy. Okay. Got to think of how to do this. I think I need to move this condition down into here. So let's just go if handler.state.equals. Is that not working? Chunk invalidation state.fetched. So if that, then that, oops. Else if, we'll do the error handler in here. I could do a retry mechanism or something, but what I am instead going to do is just log an error for now. Log error. Error fetching chunk data. There we go. I guess it would be nice if I could log the actual exception. Let's do something here. Let's just store, optionally store the exception against the here. Yeah, I'll need to think about how I do proximity chat, because I do want kind of the concept of guilds, and obviously, while it breaks realism, there's certain, I want the game to be a little bit social, so people should be able to chat to people within their guild or whatever the groupings are that I put into the game. But also want people to be able to chat locally. So I'll probably, a lot of MMOs have the concepts of local chat and guild chat and trade chat, things like that. So I'll probably break realism and implement non-local chat in mine. Along with local chat, obviously, it'd be good to be able to talk to the people that are physically close to you. Okay, so in here, I'm also going to say that error is going to be equal to E. I'm going to have to take a coffee break in a moment. Here in Australia, we just had Father's Day on the weekend, and my youngest daughter, I thought I might as well show this off. I'll just cover up anything. Yeah, there we go. She made me a mug, and see if we can see it. This is actually, weird. The what you can see as see-through there is actually green hills. Obviously, it's setting off my green screen. But she's made my game. She's drawn my game on the mug she gave me for Father's Day, which I thought was really sweet. Yeah, we have a different date for Father's Day in Australia to most of the rest of the world for some reason. Ours is in September. Okay. So that should let me at least log what the error was. Just get a nice little something like that. Okay. Now I am just going to step in here though. Obviously, what's actually going wrong here is we're fetching successfully. We're trying to, I don't know, add those entities into the world. Is that what I do in here? And something is failing in there. Most likely, I'd say, I know exactly what this is. I'd say I'm actually trying to add the entities into the world here, which would be happening on the wrong thread. So let's see. if that's the case, it's pretty easy to fix. I just need to make it so that this just keeps a copy of what's going to get added to the world, and then in some update method somewhere, it'll do the actual additions. Come back in here, run the code. I will hit that breakpoint pretty much instantly. Here we go. I've got 23 entities it's about to add into the world. I step in. We are on a background thread. What's happening here? Oh, I'm hitting that breakpoint repeatedly. So let's just disable that breakpoint. Then step into this one. Step into the invoke. Step into here. So he's on invalidation result. Oh, what was that? Don't know what happened just then. Something is wrong in here, though. I do plan to stream tomorrow, Random Go. Hopefully each day of this week. And probably, I was a little late starting today, and hopefully I'll be back to normal time, midnight UTC from tomorrow. There's something in here. Let's just step through. Step through. What's it doing? Why am I not getting new calls? Here we go. So result has a chunk coordinate and entities. So there's nothing wrong with that call. So I expect it to call into here. There we go. We are on a background thread, and yeah, sure enough, this is not allowed. And this is not allowed. A whole bunch of this code is not allowed when we're on a background thread. So what I actually want to do is just store this data, I guess. Private void apply invalidation results. And that is just going to do yes, I do intend to stream tomorrow and starting at the usual time. So I was a bit late starting today, but I'll go back to my usual time for streaming tomorrow. I expect to stream each day this week from now. Yeah, I missed yesterday. Okay, so in here, I'm going to need to capture two things. I need to capture the entities to be removed and the entities to be updated. So let's do that in here. Private list of, what do I do to delete? Local ID is just UUIDs. So I'll just have a list of UUIDs. And this is going to do yeah, I intend to keep on streaming for as long as I can, random guy. Not on each day. I mean, my intention is any day that I'm working on the game, I will be streaming. But yeah, unfortunately, I have a business as well. So, and while I usually work on that at night, I have had a few instances where I've had to work on it during the day. So, and that just has to take precedence. I've got customers who get angry if I don't deliver to them. Welcome, King of the Chaos League. Glad you have followed. Okay, so here I need to keep track of entities to delete. So let's just go entities to delete is going to be a new list. This at the moment is C# right at the moment. So the client for my MMO is written in Unity and C#. However, the back end of my MMO is written in TypeScript. So you'll see me bouncing back and forth between C# and TypeScript. So in here, what I need to do is entities to delete dot for each. Local ID goes to, and then in here, I'm going to do that. So we actually go through and destroy the item for that entity, pull it out of our index, and that's how we apply an invalidation result. I also need to, I'm basically treating these as queues. In fact, does C# have... yeah, Java is what I usually do as for my day job. So when I'm not working on games, I work on sort of cloud systems, client-server cloud systems that are written in Java and JavaScript for the front end, React. My front ends are usually React. Oops, what have I done? Entities to delete. Yeah, what I was trying to do, I was trying to work out whether or not I should bother using a queue type for JavaScript, for C#. I'm sure there is a queue. Yep. I'm not even going to bother reading the documentation. I presume it's beneficial to use this rather than a list. So let's make that a queue. Entities to delete. And in here, I'm going to change this to a while. While it has any items in it. Oops, how do I get that to go up one? Oh, I was need to do that to both of them. So then I just need the local ID. var local ID is going to be how do you pull? There's no pull operator. Have to look up the documentation. In queue, it must be DQ. There we go. Dot D. No? Oh, not in entity index. That's meant to be entities to delete dot DQ. There we go. So we just pull items out of that queue, delete them. Down in here, entities to delete dot inqueue local ID. There we go. So now when we see when we get a result in, when we see that something needs to be deleted, we just add it to the queue to be deleted. Then I'm going to make another method here. No, it doesn't need to be another method. I'm going to throw it into here. Let's go handle deletions. Sorry if anyone's putting comments in. I have managed to lose my OBS window. There it is. Random guy, what is the relative date that you think the devlog will release? It's hard to say. I think that because I'm already partway through making it, it takes me usually about 20 hours at a guess to make a devlog episode. So I've probably got about, I don't know, I reckon I've got 8 to 10 hours left on this one. So hopefully, I think it's unlikely to be tonight, but hopefully tomorrow night, my time. So morning after tomorrow morning, your time, I think that is. And yeah, don't feel bad about hassling me about it. I'm disappointed it hasn't made it out yet. So I know it's what a lot of people are here for. All right, so here's the code that runs on each of the new entities or updated entities. Private queue of something. I don't know what this is yet. I'll just put that in as object. I will fill that in. Entities to update. It must be of type entity. And this needs to be a while loop. Entities to update dot count. See if there's a better method here. Entities to update dot contains no dot count greater than 0. What's the challenge, random guy? Yeah, I don't think I'm going to do that, random guy. It's there's a fair bit of upfront work I'd have to do to. I mean, it's really hard to get Unity running on my desktop is one issue. So I'd have to spend a fair bit of time getting the builds going for, and yeah, the focus of my devlog is not meant to be about the engine itself. It's really about the process behind the game itself. So my goal is not to focus on engine features. It's to focus on my game, really. I really see engines as a tool for producing a game. And yeah, for people wanting to learn about either Unreal or Unity, there are 101 tutorials out there. And so I think what I add, I think there are two things that my devlog can add. One is documenting my process of building my game. And the other is, because I'm not a game developer, but I'm a fairly experienced software developer, I also hope to kind of bring things that I know from software development and kind of bring them to the game development community, I guess. So yeah, that's what I see the focus of my devlog as being. I mean, that said, at some point I might kind of, do just a single, not an actual devlog episode, but just an unrelated episode about, first making something really simple in Godot, making something really simple in Unreal. That I could imagine myself doing. But yeah, I am on Linux, and Unreal doesn't release a copy of a version of their engine for Linux. It builds for Linux, but I have to go and do that myself. So it feels like fairly big time sink. Okay, let's see. So while we have entities, go off and do this. What's this? Why doesn't it like this? Oh, I'm just in debugger. Let's just get the breakpoints gone. There we go. Come back to where I was. It still doesn't like this. Suspicious comparison. There's no type in the solution, which is inherited from both. Ah, yes. There we go. I'm not sure how that was working before. That's a bit suspicious. This is meant to ignore player updates, but that equality was wrong. Ah, well, this code's been broken and not been getting called, so that's why. So I've just had a bit of a latent bug sitting in there. All right, at 5 to 12, I'm going to take a 5-minute break. And then I'll probably stream for about another half hour to an hour after that today. That looks like another letter, random guy. All right, I will write that one down. If I can find my pen. Almost sneezed. I hate almost sneezes. Off the top of my head, I think that was an F, random guy. Oh, hang on. What's A? A is O, so it must be A, B, C, D. I think it's an E. I'm going to have to look it up now. That's my table. A is 41. Yeah, so it was an F. Yeah, handy little trick if you for just doing ASCII in your head. Hang on, 5. Hang on, 101. That starts with a 5. All right. That's a funny character. That is a V. Yeah. So this is why you shouldn't do ASCII in your head. Yeah, but a handy little trick for doing ASCII in your head. Oops, broadcast paused. No. Type it out. 1010110. Yeah, so if it starts with 0100, that's a capital. 0110 is lowercase. And then you just need to take the rest of these characters. So 110 is 6 plus 16. So this is the 22nd letter in the alphabet, and you just count them through, and you'll get to a V. So you basically ignore those, take those, and yeah. All right, where was I? This all looks okay in here. So then what I need to do in here on invalidation result, is there an enqueue all entities to update dot enqueue? No, I have to do them one at a time. Easily done. I just do entities dot to list for each, like that. Then the last thing I need to do to get this working is call this method from the update method. Let's do that in here. That's a very, very messy code. Arcadian Rift, it sounds familiar. Who's the developer? This is still not working. We received some entities, didn't see an error. David RB, no, I don't know him. I'm not sure that I've seen the devlog. The name sounds familiar though for some reason. I will look him up though. Over in my notes. Okay, I'm going to take a quick 5-minute break. I'll just get my pause screen ready. Tools, scripts, reset. Okay, I'll be back in about 5 minutes with coffee. Okay, not quite 5 minutes, but that's fine. Okay, so what could be going wrong here? I'm still getting some trees loading. I suspect the trees that are loading are the ones that are coming in through UDP, is my guess. I think I'm just going to have to breakpoint. Just saying that I am going to have to use breakpoints here to work out what's going wrong. Are we coming in here? Is the first question. No, hang on. I know I'm coming in here. A better question is this. Am I ever coming in here? But I want a condition on this. I want where... Well, I can just set a breakpoint in here. And a breakpoint in here. About your earlier question... Oh, no idea. I mean, it depends on the exact field you're going for, right? You know, if you're going... I can't remember the name of the really well-known horror game, Night at Freddy's, whatever it's called, you know, versus more of a zombie-style horror. It really depends on the feel you're going for, I think. But yeah, I mean, I think it's worth putting thought into rather than just adding a creature. Five Nights at Freddy's, that's the one. Thank you. I was going to say Weekend at Bernie's, but that's a totally different thing. Yeah, I think rather than just adding in something like a scary monster, you really want to make sure that your monsters kind of work with your storyline. So yeah, you want some real you want them to mesh together really well. So yeah, I think it's something that's worth putting a lot of thought into to get right in a horror game. Likewise, I don't want to use trolls in my game because I mean the trolls are just trolls, right? They don't. Lots of games have trolls, and they don't really do anything to build the world. If I just put in something that someone else has come up with, so I'll likewise be coming up with. I'll be putting quite a bit of effort into replacing my trolls with something that suits the universe that I'm building. All right, so where is... Let's try this again. Okay, so this code's never getting called. Yeah, I mean the pop culture reference that springs to mind there, random guy, is of course Slender Man. That if that's the kind of feel you want to go for, you could get something pretty freaky going there. Sorry, just pressing my coffee. Take me a moment here. When you try to import it, UE crashes. How tall are you trying to make it? Okay, my coffee is now completely ready. I've lost my mouse, that's all right. Oh, we're getting an exception. That this is frustrating. I've lost my mouse. Go. Where did it crash? It crashed on here, did it? Strangely, I'm not seeing the exception get logged. Oh, this is meant to be error for starters. That should at least give me my errors being logged. Thank you. Sorry about that. I muted my microphone to cough and obviously missed the button to re-enable it. I didn't say anything too interesting. So, yes, so I'm still trying to call into Unity stuff. This can only be called on the main thread. So I think I've just got to move all of this off into the into that update method. So let's just grab all of it, push this into here. But then, yeah, I'm just going to, this is basically reverting the changes I made before, but moving it all into the main thread. Entity updates. Hang on, this isn't right anyway. No, it is right. If we receive a chunk update, this is frustrating. Okay, I'm going to roll back a bunch of changes here. I'm just going to Control Z, get this back to where it was earlier. I don't know when my last git commit was, unfortunately. I should have committed. Okay, so that code's all still down in there. This code in here, we want to grab all of, oops. Get rid of that. Take all of that. Put that in there like that. Grab those 2 lines. I'll catch you around, random guy. Yeah, hopefully see you tomorrow. Put those 2 lines in here. Okay, so this code is exactly what the old code was. Then what I need is I need to basically push these into a dictionary of some sort. So up in here, I'm going to go Control Z, pending chunk invalidations. Invalidations. This is going to be a dictionary of chunk coordinate to an array of entities. Then down in here, all I've got to do is take the pending chunk invalidations and I think add will complain, won't it, if I already have something in there. Let's just check. C# dictionary add. Yes, it will complain if it already contains one. So what I'll do in here, I will do pending chunk invalidations dot remove. Oh, that's probably. Let's just check the behavior of remove. Make sure that this is idempotent. Yep, this is idempotent. So I can just remove the chunk coordinate. That makes sure that it's not already in our dictionary. And then we just set chunk coordinate to be the entities. So if we do, for some reason, get this called multiple times for the one chunk, we'll just take the latest one and overwrite it with that. I'm not sure if that's the correct behavior, but it'll have to do for now. So back in here, we then say pending chunk invalidations dot I kind of really want to grab the here we go. We've got enumerator, might be what I want. Let's just go straight over the keys. I'll just loop over them. Yeah, we'll grab the chunk coordinate. We'll say that the entities is going to be equal to the pending chunk invalidations dot I do just want to get, so that's what that. All right. So that just grabs the entities out, put all of this inside a loop. Okay. Now I need to be careful because this stuff's all happening on a background thread. So I think I need to have some sort of a lock. Let's just get the client stopped. It's my, go away. Here we go. Yeah, I need some sort of a lock on this. I presume that So in Java, any object is a lock. I suspect that's not the case in C Sharp. And I might as well do it using a mutex anyway. I basically want to guard this method no, C Sharp lock. I want sort of a using clause around a lock. Oh, there's a lock statement. Excellent. For a given object. Easy. So I am just going to lock on pending chunk invalidations here so that it won't come into this code while that's getting updated. I'm getting a lot of nesting here, but that's all right. Now in here, I need to also do the pending chunk invalidations. I just don't want these bits of code being called at the same time. So let's do that. Yeah, otherwise I have no idea what happens if the code runs somewhere in between these two. This, I've already fixed a bug in here once, so let's fix that again, like that. Okay. And then apply invalidations is going to happen down in here. The other thing I need to do, once it's gone through and processed each of these, I need it to, oh, how do I go to the matching brace? I don't know. Before we release the lock, I also want to clear this because this is we're treating this like a queue, basically, an unordered queue. Okay. Ooh, that's a fair complaint. Really? Oh, I'm in the wrong block, aren't I? Is this my synchronization block? No. Oh, that was nearly a pretty silly bug. Where's my lock? Here it is. So I actually wanted to put that call just here. So for anyone new, I am aware that this code here, both server manager and remote session, are extremely ugly bits of code. And they're going to get refactored at some point, but I'm putting off any major changes in there until later. Okay, where are we at? Something isn't right here. I'll give it one more shot, and if this doesn't behave, I've got no idea why it's breakpointing here. Let's just kill Unity, restart Unity. I think Unity just failed to see some code changes or something. So I'll restart Unity. Nope. Something is unhappy. Exception of type Unity exception was thrown. Oh, this looks better. This looks a lot better. I don't know what those exceptions were, but I've got trees, I've got plants, I've got stones. If I pick up a stone, was that the only flat stone on the sand? Yes. I'll drop that over here. Then I'll log out. I'll come back in. That seems to have put the stone back, which isn't good. Or did I just not see that one before for some reason? Pick that one up. Drop that over here. And again, for anyone who's new, I'm aware that stones are hovering. I've also got flicker, which I've been seeing for a bit now. Yep, something is not updating. Okay. So what I'm going to do next to just work out where I'm at is I'm going to kill my... Oh, cannot find... Invalidation for chunk. This is suspicious. Let's just bring those down. I'm going to start my server up again with a fresh database. This is normal, just as it's generating terrain. Here we go. Now, while that's running, I'm also going to do a separate build so that I can spin up a separate binary version of this so that I can have two players in the game more easily. Oh, this, worth noting, I've also got exceptions being thrown. And at a guess, I would assume that's stopping the commands from going out. So when I'm picking up stones and dropping them again, I'd say those commands are never getting out to the server. Because the new call I put in is just before it goes to offload those commands. Obviously, I need to make this code a bit more resilient because that would be... it's obviously a serious bug if the game can fail to get commands off and not in any way notify the player. What's it complaining about here? It's trying to load my test runner into my binary. Build settings. Build. Let's do 0122.2. 0.1.22.2. So I normally see these errors. I have no idea what causes these. It doesn't seem to affect my build though. I've seen suggestions that it's just something wrong with with my hierarchy over here. And so at some point I'll have to rebuild that and find out what's going wrong. As I said, it doesn't seem to affect the performance though. Come on. I hate to think what builds are like on a slow machine. I've got a beast of a machine. And this is still so slow. Hardly riveting viewing here, but once I've got this build, it should build a lot faster on my next go. Wish I had a fast forward button at this point. I'm close to giving up. Because I know I've got another problem causing exceptions. Well, while that's going, how about I just eyeball my code? So this should be fine. In update, it's calling apply invalidation results, and sure enough, that's happening before we process the remote commands, before we offload the remote commands. Oh, here we go. I'll come back to that in a second. So that explains why picking up a stone and putting it back down again is not persisting. It's because the server's never getting told about it. And I'd say that this is failing. So I probably want to try a catch around this because it's really important that let's do it in the top level so that it's clear at the point we're calling it. We need to make it clear that we are swallowing exceptions here. Okay. Is there any point in running this yet. Oh, might as well just run it to see what it looks like. So here is the game client. Notice it's full screen. This is how you can tell if I'm running it as a binary or in IntelliJ. So yep, there's that. We come back to here. So that other player is not really in. You saw a player there, but it's just a stale session of some sort. But if I bring in a second client, this is the, yeah, so something's really not updating because that's the two players there. If I go and, what's the best way of doing this? If I pull that over there, yeah, and this player can't even see that new player. There should be 3 capsules in the game at the moment. So something is very broken. Here we go. We've got some unhandled exceptions going on. Given key was not present. Do I get a better... No, I don't get a better stack trace than that. So... I know it's not in here. It has to be in the apply method. So it's going to be somewhere in here. Yeah. So here we have a chunk coordinate. So we're processing this particular chunk. We've got 23 entities coming in. We grab remote entities set. So this is just that same entities array, but as a set, that's fine. Local entity set just grabs. All right, so remote entity set is just all the UUIDs that are coming in from the server. Local is all the UUIDs we know about in that chunk. These are both equal to 23. So we shouldn't come into, let's see, we should go through each of the 23 local entities and we should check whether or not they exist in the remote entities. Now, so this is a refetch of an existing chunk. So it should not step in. Oh, we do step in. So it's saying remote entities does not contain that local ID. It clearly does contain that local ID. That's it there, right? Yeah. Yep. So, as always, this is going to be something really, really, really dumb. Let's just check the UUID class. We do have a hash code. We do have an equals. the equality check, well, I'll need to check let's check the hash code check first. So in here, what is it, Alt F8, I think, to get the expression evaluator? Yes. So local ID dot get hash code. Okay, so this ends in EB8. Remote entity set dot to list 0. Hopefully this is that one. Yeah, it ends in E910. Excellent. And then we call dot get hash code. This one ends in 680. All right. So yeah, I think I know what's going on here. Let's just confirm that this old one does not end in 680, and it does not. Okay, so even though these two sets of IDs are the same, I didn't know they're the same, we're failing these contains checks. And so this is going to be, this code here, I've been assuming that C# defines a sensible get hash code for their arrays, but I think that they are actually using reference identity. So let's go C# array get hash code. Yeah, here we go. Reference equality. Because these are separate copies of the same object, they're coming up with different different hash codes and things. So yeah, I'm just going to grab this code here. And I'll adapt it. I'm not going to copy it verbatim because I don't want... Maybe I will copy it verbatim. So yeah, we've got a first, we've got a second. Oh, can't type. First, second. If they are the same reference, yeah, I'm going to stick with the generated code here, because this will pass if they're both null. I suspect this code's exactly the same as what they've got in here. But let's just say if second is null, then return false. Oh, this should be other. If these are the same reference, then return true. It doesn't like that. Why? Really? Why is that guaranteed to not be true? Oh, I see. Equals... bear with me. This code has to stay. This code has to go. This code has to go. There we go. And I just get rid of that stuff. Okay. If their bytes are not the same length, then return false. Otherwise, go through each of the bytes and if not, this I dot, nope. Let's go, if this I not equal to other I, what's it complaining about here? Cannot apply indexing to an expression of, oh, yes, that's meant to be underscore bytes. That's obviously meant to be other dot bytes. Other dot bytes. There we go. Get hashcode. I don't think I want this unchecked bit unless I absolutely need to. Yep, so I presume this is intentionally choosing a prime number close to a power of 2 for each var byte in, var b in bytes. B dot get hashcode. There we go. How does that look? Keyword new is required. Probably the same thing on here. No, this is all good. It thinks we don't override get hashcode. Get hashcode. What have I done? Oh, it's meant to be an override. That looks better. Okay. Just let it clean up my code for me. And I think that this will work better. So, we'll rerun this. Turn on my breakpoints again. This looks better. I don't see any exceptions being thrown anymore. We're getting a lot of chunk invalidations coming through still. So that suggests there is still something wrong in the protocol, because once it's fetched those chunks, we shouldn't need to refetch them. Can I at least pick up this rock over here and move it off? Come out of the game. Why am I getting a breakpoint on here? This is really frustrating me. And then run the game again. And sure enough, you can see that that stone has moved. Okay, so this is progress. We are seeing the entities get populated. We're not getting exceptions anymore. And we can see stuff getting moved around. So my next question, and this is going to be the last thing I do on this netcode. Hopefully it's not too big an issue. My question is this: why do I keep on getting these chunk invalidations coming through? This is probably a server-side bug. In fact, let's go and look at my logs. Yes, okay, so we're seeing this again. Let's go through the logic here. I think this is going to be pretty straightforward. This is going to be in my client game state class. I'm over on the server now, so we're in TypeScript land. Now, what we do is every time we send a message out to the client, we actually keep a copy. This is going to be a very large structure, that's all right. We keep a copy of the chunks that we are invalidating. Now, if we've already generated a message for that, an invalidation for that chunk previously, then we don't bother capturing that data again, because yeah, we're just going to have to assume that they get the old version of the data anyway, and it'll all come back in sync on a following frame. So what it's meant to do, well, these must be happening in response to a chunk invalidation acknowledgement coming back from the server. Well, let's look at line 192. We come down, line 192. Process acknowledgements. So the first thing this does is it says, all right, whatever the client says was the last packet it saw from the server, take any deltas that were sent to it in that message ID and apply that. That's fine. I assume that line is working. Then what we do is we pass the invalidation acts. So this is going to be like, there's like 10 acts, I think, being sent through at the moment. And we try finding them. Down in here. I've got a feeling this is really trivial. Oops. If I breakpoint in here, I'm going to have to stop my server. Whose code is that? That's the UDP transmitter. So we'll debug the UDP transmitter. So what's meant to happen is it's meant to apply those invalidations to the game state. Like, it's meant to take what it thinks the client has just acknowledged and just blat it over the top. And I would say that that is the bit that's not working. So let's get a breakpoint in here. And how many acknowledgements do we have? 13 acknowledgements. Cool. So there are 13 separate acknowledgements coming through, all with the same message ID. I'm just going to let that run through again, just so I don't kill my session. Breakpoint again. Okay. So what this is meant to return is an array of invalidation references. To get that, what it does is it starts with an empty array. It looks at each of these acts, and it goes and looks it up in here. So let's get a breakpoint in there. What have I done? There's my breakpoint there. Run, so we stepped in. So next what we do, we take our acknowledgement. This is just any given acknowledgement. We ask for its chunk key, which is just going to be 2, -1. Chunk key is 2, -1. We then look that up in the pending chunk invalidations, which is empty. That is an issue. So I'm obviously not actually populating the pending chunk invalidations. This isn't what I thought it was going to be, but this doesn't look too bad to fix anyway. So this is where it's failing. It's meant to be looking up a copy of the data that the client has just acknowledged and then copying it into the client state. It's not doing that. Let's look at all the times this gets set. Apply chunk invalidation. Nope, so that's pulling it out and applying it. Let's come back here. Where else do we reference that? All right, that's the code that we're currently looking at. Remove acknowledged packets. Again, that's just trying to find stuff for cleanup. So if it's not in this last one, this looks like more cleanup. Yep, more cleanup. Okay, so I'm never populating this object. Now that should normally get done when the server generates its invalidations. Generate message. Here we go. This is where it actually generates the invalidation. So this is where I need to actually populate the data. No, not pending message IDs. What have I done here? Have I been looking at the wrong thing? Meant to be pending chunk invalidations. Yes, that is what I was just looking at. So pending chunk invalidations for the chunk key. And I need to pass it one of these objects. I'm ignoring static only for now. So it just needs a chunk coord and some data. All right. Let's fill this out. Doesn't like that because that's meant to be a chunk coordinate. I think I've got something called a chunk-like object that will work better. No. There we go. And then data needs to be all of the entities. What am I trying to actually do here? No, this needs to be entities in chunk or something. So close. Entity index is, surely I can pull out the entity data from here. Okay, this is a bit harder than I thought it was going to be. So the entity index must give me a way of... No, it doesn't. Gives me entity updates by ID. Well, entities is all of the entities. So in here, I should be able to just pass it entities. Oh, yes. Obviously, I want to filter this anyway. Entity goes to entity dot location dot chunk equal to that. So I just pull out all of the entities within that chunk. Now the problem is this is the wrong format. This wants it to be, yeah, I'm going to need a spread operator of some sort here. Dot data. So whatever our existing data was, which is that. If it doesn't already exist, then yeah, we do need to chain that. That's fine. If this is undefined, that's also fine, because that will just populate this with an empty object. Then in here, we need to know the message ID. Don't we know our message ID? We need to know our message ID. Yes, I need to know what this ID is. Let's do ID, message ID. And then I'll populate that right up the top. Like that. Oops, where's my bookmark? Here it is. Okay, so we've got our message ID is then going to map to that. What's wrong with that? Okay, that needs to just be like that. This needs to be to UUID string. That's still not quite right. This needs to be dot to proto. And then what is wrong in here? Yes, fair enough. I'm going to need a reducer of some sort here. We need a way of getting from entity ID to the entity. So this isn't meant to be, I'm putting this in as an array. I actually want to create an object. Easily fixed. This is actually going to be a reduce. So we do our filter to pull out everything that's in the chunk that we're about to invalidate. We do a reduce. Result entity goes to something, and then that's going to be an empty object. This returns whatever the result was, like that. This is going to be complaining because this type is wrong? No. I mean, this is clearly wrong. I think that I just need to grab this type here. Come down here. Be explicit about that. Missing static only, that's fine. For now, I'm ignoring it. Okay, I think that is looking a bit better. Now, regardless, I'm going to have to finish up my stream in a moment because I do have some other things I need to move on to. Wish I knew why it was breakpointing there. Okay, server must be breaking because it looks fine. We're clearly not getting the pending, sorry, the invalidation through. Why not? Well, this is slightly promising. We're not getting this code report called repeatedly. I would say at this point, my guess is that we are sending these through. If I kill the client and restart it again, I think we'll hit that new breakpoint. Let's try that. Yeah, we'll hit this other fake breakpoint a couple of times. No, we never get into here. All right. I am going to have to debug this off stream. So thank you everyone for joining. And I do intend to stream again tomorrow. So slightly earlier, midnight UTC. It's like 5 p.m. Pacific time, 8 p.m. Eastern time, 2 a.m. European time. So thank you, and I'll hopefully see